Hi, I'm Seamless, and today I'm going to show you how to make this sound through a very unusual process. So really what this video is I'm going to show you how to make your own vocoder with Patcher. Ah! And so you're looking at this and you're thinking, good God, why, what, how, and all this good stuff. So, but to understand what's happening here, because this is really just very simple, but it's just kind of tedious. But like what's really happening here is the basic application of what a vocoder is. Now, when we open up, say, Vocodex, let's just put it on my voice for fun. When we open it up, we see that we have a whole bunch of these bands going on. Now, what Vocodex is doing, what vocoders in general do, is it splits up has a modulator and a carrier. The carrier being the basic sound, and the modulator being the thing that changes the carrier. So, like, a carrier is usually a synth, and then the modulator would be like someone's voice, and then you get Daft Punk. So that's kind of what that does. I have something in my mouth. So, what we're doing here is we're basically doing a very basic form of that. We're doing a 17-band vocoder. So we're splitting up the input modulator into 17 bands, and then each of these bands, we're doing this just by separating it like in the EQs like this. And this is very kind of loose. Like you can even see actually in the output. You can kind of see the individual bands going on in there, and that's because it's not terribly precise. And I wasn't really being precise. I was just kind of experimenting to see if this is even possible. So the P controllers, what the P controllers do, you can see here that it detects the input level of the input that goes into the P controller, and each of these very narrow bands are output to their own P controller. So whenever any audio goes through that particular area of the audio spectrum, it lights up that P controller, and then the P controller is then controlling an equally set up output equalizer, which has the the EQ level here for this one band that's actuating set up to follow the P controller, and you do that by going in here. First, you have to activate it, and then once you activate it, you get the normal right-click window, and you can go to link to controller. And you actually don't need to do that, because once you activate the handle, I should actually go over the basic process of how to do that first. So I'm going to open up a brand new Patcher. Patcher can be loaded as an effects insert or as an actual channel. And a lot of what you can do with the effects insert, you can just do in the channel anyway. But I'll talk to you about why I decided to do it in effects insert when we get to the final stages of how this works. So first off, let's say I added an equalizer, right? So that's the input is going into the equalizer, and then I set the bands, the 7 and 8 to be steep and to be a low pass and a high pass, and then I can make it so it's like, oh look, it's a band, and then make the resonance values, which is what this is, because like resonance also Q value, also bandwidth value. That's what those are all more or less. They're the same function, just with different applications for different filter types, which are what is governing the actions that like the EQ is taking. So like, right, the basic kind is a band, like, kind of like a band pass sort of thing. Only an actual band pass there is one actual band pass, passes everything except for what this band is here. But what we have here is called a peaking type. And what this does is it keeps everything the same except for where it is, and then it creates the band. So you can do band or notch kind of deal. That's sort of what that does. So we do high pass and low pass, and it cuts everything except for where it is. And so I've made a band like that. So now I'm going to insert into here a peak controller, which is somewhere. It's a fruity peak controller. Doink. Ta-da. Now, output's not going anywhere. I'm not actually letting the output go through here. I don't want the audio to come out. I just want the information. So I'm going to go into the peak controller in here, and we have, if we made sound, there would be peak going on in there, but I want to activate a controller in there. So we have inputs and outputs, and you can either do audio output, which has the main through going on, or you can have parameter output. And in this place, we have the peak LFO, peak and LFO. So let's do peak. and now this little red line shows up. So then if I brought out another EQ, for example, I go in here and I say I want to automate this. So I go to activate. Now I'm not going to do anything. Like I could right click this and make an automation clip or link to a controller and do that sort of stuff for it to interact with anything that's outside of the patcher. But if I wanted to work with what's inside the patcher, see now this is a red dot. Bam. So now the output parameter is going to mess with the input parameter, which is what this is now. So that means the peak information from here is going to mess with this jazz here, and that's why I set up for every single one of these bands. Now, you see that there is audio output coming out of here, and you think, well, you said that you didn't want that audio to output. Well, what I don't want output is the modulator. I want the carrier output though. So what's happening here is that I have set up. If you right click on this, you can go to outputs, and then it'll show you which one is going on in there. And this is the result of the fact that I've routed in different inserts to go into output number or insert number 1 here, which is this patcher. So if I write in insert 10 and then come back in here, outputs audio, insert 10 would show up. So that's what's going on here. And insert 1 is just something that's in the channel. This is the main channel, but nothing is coming into that. So that's just there by itself. And if I wanted to, I could. I could deactivate it, but I'm not going to. So anyway, which one is 2? 2 is insert 2 is the carrier, and insert 3 is the modulator. So the modulator and insert 3 are all going into these input equalizers, which are kind of like the reader equalizers, because they're going into the peak controllers, which are basically giving the change information to go to the carrier. So these are like the reader. These are the reader bands, and then the carrier is going all the way out and into here. So the carrier is going into these equalizers, and the audio that's going into these bands are being affected by the reader information. So that's again basically what a vocoder does. It's applying the equalizer movement from the modulator on top of the carrier. So this is very basic, like synth building kind of stuff. Like this is how a vocoder functions. And I'm having that go out, and then I'm adding in some various like I'm putting this guy is just a sub, so that there's separate bass going in there, because like in Vocodex, which has its own I turned it off, but Vocodex has its own cutoff and for low pass and high pass for both the modulator and the carrier, so that you can have things like if you want just the bass to come through, which helps the sound more solid, as opposed to, because most sounds, like most of the bass sounds that I make with these vocoders are very full spectrum sounds. They have the bass, they have a lot of mid activity, a lot of high activity, but a lot of modulators don't do that. Like this voice sample that I'm using, if we look at the equalizer, that's the carrier. If we look at the equalizer of the that's the carrier. That's the modulator. As you can see, it's kind of weak in the high end. And this mid kind of activity that's going on is also what's creating the vowel characteristic of the sound. I'm also using an FM bass patch. That's what the bass sounds like by itself. Now it's having the sound applied to it, which is because that's how I like doing vocoder basses. I like having an FM bass underneath it, because it already has some vocally qualities to it, and then I modulate it through vocoding with another vocal, and that kind of like compounds the vowel formant complexity of the sound at large. And it was just a compressor to keep everything in line. This is just the default, not the default, but the first preset that you get when you open Maximus. I also put on this mute so that there's only sound coming out of the vocoder, the vocoder part of this, when the modulator is making sound. Because if it didn't do that, it sounded kind of weird. So I just wanted to clamp that down. So why did I do this? This was really just me kind of screwing around, because it occurred to me that you could do this, and I wanted to see if there was any kind of benefit to manually building something like this compared to just using a normal vocoder, and the answer is really no. Vocodex kind of does everything you want to do, and it does it way better, and it gives you control over way more parameters. I mean, I could have, I guess, controlled the bandwidth of all of these, which you can control with Vocodex. And then I could have like made up some buttons and put them on the surface, and then that would have been fine. But I didn't. It's a lot of work, and yeah. I was also like these were evenly weighted band changes, and if you think about how the audio spectrum works, it's not necessarily predicated upon evenly weighted things anyway, because 20, 50, 100, this is 100 hertz, and the same space up here is 8,000 hertz. So it's not necessarily designed to be weighted that way, just by the way we visually see this. So if I wanted to actually make it evenly weighted, the band sizes would have to be specifically calculated properly to be that way. And maybe if I did that, that would create some more interesting results. For all I know, Vocodex and normal vocoders do that anyway, but I don't, because I'm not super sure about the super duper minute inner workings of how those things are encoded and the algorithms to make them all good sounding and stuff like that, because this is super duper bare bones. But I just thought it was cool. And I also just wanted to do a video because I haven't done a video in like 3 weeks. Yeah. I also discovered recently that I can live stream directly to YouTube, which is super badass. The only bummer is that there's like a 4-minute delay between when I do stuff and when you see it. So any kind of like question and answer back and forth would be super labored. And I suppose I could still try to do that kind of thing, but we'll see how well that goes in the future. I'll try to do some kind of streaming kind of thing, because really I wanted to do streams, but it was kind of difficult to actually do a stream but let people know that I'm doing it and have them actually go and do it, because most streaming applications like Livestream or Twitch or Ustream and stuff like that, they're very different apps. They're very different environments, and it's not what I'm used to for, like, I'm more used to doing YouTube stuff. So I'll definitely be looking into doing that kind of stuff. Yeah, so this is just kind of a video, just sort of a fun, make your own vocoder kind of deal. I guess I could put this vocoder patch, this patcher patch up there for you. Good luck trying to use it. I guess. I hope it works, honestly. Maybe I'll just put up this whole FLP, because I don't think I'm using any. Yeah, this, as long as you have FL11, this project file should work fine for you. You should theoretically be able to use it in FL10, I think. I don't know about FL9. I have no idea what would happen if you try doing that, but FL10 should work, but FL11 is preferred. So I'll put up this project, and you can use the bass, and you can use the this whatever. I'm using the a sample from just the vocal pack in here. I'm using this one. Yeah.
I was improvising.
I would like to introduce.
That's what that sounds like. So yeah, that's just what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have any questions, let me know. I'll try to answer them. And as usual, have a nice day.